Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do a requested flower today that one of the you watchers watching my videos have requested that I do Magnolia. I've got one here that I've already done, so I'll put that up in front of my camera there so you can see that. This is a copy of one that I have in my garden when it's in flower. Bit late now because we're in August, so they're finished, so I can't show you a real flower. If I'd have done it earlier I could have done. There are different ways of doing magnolias. When I look them up online, it's flabbergasting how many different varieties there are, and there are different ways, different types of petals, different types of centres. Usually when I've done the centre of a magnolia, I've done it by doing the stamens separately, but the one that I'm going to do today, I've got a centre here that I've already coloured, which I'm going to show you, which has got the bottom part here which curls back, and then the top part of the cone which is flat. So I'm going to do it that way rather than making loads of stamens. If you want to do it the made stamen way, where you do need a hell of a lot of stamens made, which are similar to the stamens that I did on the ranunculus butterfly, but a lot smaller, but you're going to need a hell of a lot of stamens on it. So I thought I'd show you this way, so if you haven't got a lot of equipment, then this probably will be an easy way. So I'm going to take you down to my board now. Right, so the cutters that I'm going to use are these here. These are Magnolia Cutters. If you haven't got any Magnolia Cutters, you could use a lily cutter. This is a bit big, is this, because I have got some bigger ones if I wanted to do a bigger flower. But if you'd use the medium size lily cutters, then they would be similar to this. The difference is this is more square on the bottom and that's a bit more rounded. But if you haven't got the right cutters, then you could get away with doing that. Now I'll show you the leaf cutter that I've used. If I just get this out of the packet. The leaf is a bit lopsided. This is one from Vanilla Valley that I've got, and they were quite reasonable as well. If you look online, you can find out who's got the best prices. Now, what I've done with that is I've done two different sizes of leaves. I've done one which is the size of the cutter, which is that one, and then I've done some smaller ones. And rather than showing you all this, because I've done plenty of leaves before, what I've done is I've gone round with a wheel tool and taken a bit off the outside to make a smaller version. And then you need a veiner for it. These are Magnolia leaf veiners. I've got two different sizes here, but I'm going to show you the larger one of the two. So that's the veiner for that. So if you can get the right veiners, and if you haven't got the cutter, you can always cut it out with a cutting wheel. Just remember that they're a bit lopsided. They're a bit wider on one side than they are on the other side. So I'm just going to put those away now. Put those back into my bag there. Get those out of the way. Now magnolias do vary quite a lot in colour. Usually on the sort, anything from a white colour through to deep burgundies, and I did notice that there was a mauve coloured one as well, so if you wanted to do that, that's fine. The white ones tend to be a smaller flower and a lot more smaller petals, so basically if I was going to do that one, I'd just use the smaller petal out of these to make that. So I'm just going to pop those to one side. I'm going to get some white paste out and I'll show you. Like always, I'm only going to do two petals. There's no point in doing all of them. I've already got a load of bits and pieces already made up, but I've just dropped that on the floor, so we'll get another piece out. Right, So if you start with your paste on the board, make sure you put a little bit of white fat on. Don't use the cornflour method because it moves around too much. You need to be able to leave it in one place and just roll it out. As I've said before in previous videos, I know a lot of professionals do it that way, but that dries your paste out, and I hate waste, so I prefer using this method because it doesn't dry your paste out. And if you want a little bit longer to work on your paste before you knead it as well, what you can do is rub some white fat onto your hands when you're kneading it, so it softens your paste a little bit and gives you a little bit longer working time. So I'm just going to use one groove up here with my trusty grooved rolling pin, and I've got a bit of colour on it there which I've transferred onto my paste, which fortunately this is going to be the back, so that's going to be coloured anyway, so I'm not going to see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out one of each petal. So that's the large one. Now I'm going to cut out two of the smaller petals. I'm going to do one without a ridge because I can get a wire in without. The reason I'm going to do two is because I've got some flowers that are like this that are open, but I'm also going to show you how to do one that's more closed as well, because I'm going to put this into a spray, so I want a closed one as well as the open one. So that's why I'm doing two of the smaller petals. All the larger petals are all done exactly the same way. It's just the inner petals that you need to do slightly differently. Like for most flowers, I'm going to use a 26 gauge wire to make the to do the petals. Just put that away. Cover that up. So I'm going to get some 26 gauge wires out here. If you've got a box like this to keep your wires in, it's a lot easier to keep track of what you've got and where they are. Just don't drop it on the floor and let them all fall out. That happened to me once with a customer when I had my shop. They knocked it over, they didn't bother to pick them up, they just left them there, and of course once they get mixed up it's very difficult to sort them out into the sizes because you never get them exactly right, so it's a nightmare. Right, so I'm cutting these wires into quarters. So I'm just going to use three of these. So I'm going to start off with the larger petal. Again, like we always do, no matter how you make your ridge on your paste, whether you do it with the rolling pin, with the other side of the board, with the groove board, or with the rolling pin, between your finger and your thumb and your first finger, let's get it right, twist it into your paste and then feel it go up your wire a little bit at a time. Now, as with anything, try and get your wire as far up your petal as you can. I've got to nearly to the top there without it coming through and showing on your paste. So just leave that there for a minute while I do the two smaller petals. Again, between your first finger and your thumb, twist your wire in, and just a little bit at a time up your petal until you've got as far as you can. For the people who are watching for the first time, the reason why I try and get the wire so far up is because if you break a petal, unfortunately it's still on the wire, it's a lot easier to repair it, because then you can just mix some of your flower paste with some of your glue and repair your petal. So it's always a good idea to have spare pieces of paste left, especially if you're colouring it. So you can do that. Just get this up here. Just have to concentrate a little bit more with this because I haven't got a groove to follow, so it will go up inside my paste. So there we are, that's that done. Right, next thing, onto your pad to thin your edges. Even if you get your paste too thick, it's important that you thin your edges to take that cut edge off. if you're going in for competitions or anything like that, the judges will tell you that they'd rather you have your thinner edges rather than really thin paste, although I like to have my paste fairly thin. And I've lost my ball tool. What have I done with that? It should be in with my tools and it's not. Oh, there it is, found it. So thin your edges like that. Move that out of the way. If you've got any questions about anything, leave them in the comments below, or any suggestions about anything that you'd like to see me demonstrate. And like always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The more people who've got subscribing, the better it is for us to keep the channel going. Right, so that's the petals thinned. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that to one side. Now, I have somewhere got a veiner for this. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it. So, when I find what I've done with it, and I've lost my veiners that I've used on this. You just bear with me a second while I find out where I've put them. I'm actually going to use a tulip veiner. I always think that, well, I mean, it does look like a tulip on a tree. So there's no reason why you can't use a tulip veiner. And if I could lay my hands on it, I'd be able to vein that. Where are they? That's not it, that's an orchid one. And I've only just used it as well, so it should be here right under my nose. I'm doing the usual thing, so I'm going to switch off for a minute until and come back when I find my veiner. Right, I found it. Silly me, I'd put it in the bag with the leaf veiners. That's where it was. If I'd looked in there in the first place, I'd have found it straight away, wouldn't I? So I'm going to start off with the wide petals first of all. Into your veiner. Top of your veiner on. Give it a good press. This has shaped it slightly, but I need to give it a good curve because the outer petals curve in. So don't forget to shape your petals. And then that wants to go onto your foam pad, ready to shape. I'm not going to get my pad down because I've got lots of bits and pieces on there. Now then, with the narrow petals, I'm going to show you two ways of dealing with the petals for the simple reason that I want one that's open like the one that I showed you, and I want one that's more closed. So again, put the first petal into the veiner, top on. And this one, for an open flower, I've just left it as it is. Just shape the bottom, go up to the top. Then I'm going to put that into the pad and I'm going to let the top part curve back a bit like that. So that's going to go into the pad. So basically the shape I end up with, that one, I have got one here I think. No, I haven't. I've got one that I've coloured that I can show you, which is going to finish up when it's dried like that. Okay. Now the second one, this one is going to be for a closed flower. So into your veiner the same. Give it a good press. Now like the wide petal, I'm going to curve the wire inwards like that. Shape the petal up. And then pop that into the foam the same. And what I'm doing, I'm putting it into the hollow in the veiner so that it keeps its shape like that, so it's going to be more curved up. So I'm just going to pop that into there. Take that dry one out. Right, that's that bit. Now I'm going to get onto the centre now. I've already made the ones that I'm going to use for this, so I'm going to start off with a 20 gauge wire, and if you've got some long nose pliers like this, you just need to put a hook on the top, same as you would if you were doing a rose centre, like that. And then I'm going to get some green paste. When I find what I've done with my green paste, which is probably underneath the white paste. Was a minute ago. I'm doing well at losing things today, aren't I? I've done it again. That's it. Right, so I've got my green paste. So I'm going to need that. Roll that into a ball. That's a little bit big. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Take that off. Right, so we've got the ball of paste, probably about the size of a Malteser. Pop your wire into the centre and pull that down so that the hooked part disappears into the paste, and then with your holding it with your finger and thumb, if you just work the paste up above the hook. Now when we're doing this, like doing a roast centre, we're making a sort of a cone. The only difference is I want this top part to be quite narrow, so I'm just avoid the bottom part, leave that quite fat and make that quite thin, so a bit taller than you probably would do for a roast centre. Then you need a pair of small nail scissors. These have got a curved blade on them. I don't know whether you can see that or not. These come in handy for this sort of job. So turn it round away from you, and then what I'm going to do is very small tiny cuts round the base of the cone. And then go in between, go back round again. Just take your time, don't try and rush this sort of thing. More haste, less speed, as my mother used to say. And then keep going. You're going to do another row above that, going in between the previous layer. You don't want lines of these things going round. This is why you need to go in between, so you get a more natural look. Right, so when I've got to that part there, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to rub my fingers down and make these curl back. Now, if you miss some, if you've got nails, get your nails in there and pull them down a bit. So that these curve back. Okay, so once those have curved back, then we're going to go back in with the scissors again and cut some more in, but this time I want these to be more or less flat up against the side. I'm making these slightly longer as well. The ones at the bottom need to be quite fine, and then you can make these a little bit like a pineapple. Until you've got to the top, and then with your fingers just sort of bring those back in again, so they're more flat up against the cone, like that. And then you can just go back and make sure you haven't pulled any of these at the bottom up, and you can curve them back again. So basically you want these curved back at the bottom, then the other ones close up to the cone in the centre. Then put that to one side to dry. So there's no statements to make for these because you've already done that with the centre. So I'm gonna do a leaf as well. I know there are some people, sometimes it might be your first time watching, so I'm going to show you what I did with the leaf to make the two different sizes. So if I cut two leaves out, rather than buying a set of cutters, because with this particular cutter that I could have got different sizes in it, but it's cheaper just to have one. And I mean, if it's not a shaped leaf like a rose leaf or anything like that, if it's a straight side, then you only need one cutter, and then you can do this with any kind of leaf that you're going to do. So if we just roll that out, and then again with my little rolling pin, if you manage to find these rolling pins, they come in handy when you get used to doing them. They might be a little bit difficult for anybody that's just starting, but once you get used to them, it's a godsend if you have to do lots and lots of leaves or anything like that. Where's my leaf cutter gone? There it is. Oops. You get into mass production, you know, you want everything to be as easy as it can be. So with this leaf, you want the long pointed end is the bottom of the leaf, and the wider part is the top. So I'm going to cut out two of these. Take the paste away. There we are. Get rid of that. And then I want some 28 gauge wires, which I don't think I've got any. Oh, I have. I've got a couple left here. No, they're too thin. I thought I had some already cut up, but we'll do one. Again, doing the leaves, I only cut the wires into a quarter. You don't need to cut your wires if you don't do them long. A lot of demonstrators have this thing about doing the wires too long and then cutting bits off and throwing it away and that. Don't forget, some of the professional demonstrators do get all the equipment given for promoting the firms that whose products they're using. So unlike you and me, they don't have to go out and buy them. Right, so again, between your finger and your thumb, use your wire up. Just be careful with these thinner wires because they do bend more easily and they can come out if you're not careful. Right, so that's one. That's the full size leaf. Now the smaller leaf, I'm going to get my cutting wheel out. Just move those scissors out of the way. Those wires. I'm going to do this before I put the wire in. It's a lot easier. And then just take a slither off round the outside of the leaf. You don't need to take much off to make it smaller. And you don't need to do lots of leaves when you're doing magnolia because basically the flowers come out before the majority of the leaves. So if you're looking at a magnolia tree, you'll find that you might have an odd few leaves, but a lot of them won't come out until later on when the flowers are finished, or as the flowers are just dying off, I should say. Right, so again, up the central ridge. Pull that down, like that. Now I have got a little bit, if you need to repair something before you put it into the veiner there, I've missed the groove on this one. So what I'm going to do, a little bit of a cheat here. Tiny bit of paste, roll it into a very thin sausage. Then if you just lay it down on your leaf like that and press it down, You don't want to be doing this higher up, and you don't want to be doing this if you're doing a competition. Just get your nails in, just take the excess off. Whoops. And I can get hold of it there, like that. And this, you have to do this before you put it in your verner, which will become clear when I get on to that point. So we're going to thin the edges again. Sometimes people get upset if wires come out and they get really frustrated with it and it puts them off. But there are ways of repairing things if need be. But just remember, this method is only suitable if you're not doing a competition, because if you're doing a competition they'll pick up on it and mark you down on it. So in those cases then you have to destroy it and start again. Wrong burner. Just get the burner out. I have got two sizes here, but I'm just using the medium one because it's more or less the size that I need for this particular size of leaves. If I wanted to do some smaller one, I've got a smaller burner. Right, so your ridge goes into your leaf like that. Top goes on. Give it a good press. And there we are. That piece that I've added on there has disappeared. I'm just going to bit to take off there. So shape your leaf and then put that into your foam. I'll just put that to one side. I'm not going to use that anyway, but I just thought I'd do these just to show you how I use one cutter. And I've cut that the wrong way around. I should have cut it the other way around, but it doesn't matter. Give it a good press. And then shape your leaf. Right. So, once you've done those, we can get on to the colouring part now. So I'm going to start off with the centre of the, that's one that's dry. I'm going to start off by colouring the centre. So I have got some kitchen roll here somewhere, or I did have, with the colours that I was using. No, I haven't. Must have thrown it away. I'm going to use two colours for the for these flowers now. The backs of the petals are where the colour's going to go on the petals, and I'm leaving the front white. So this is the variety of Magnolia that I'm doing. Again, if you have a look online and pick which one you're going to do, just study it for a bit to see how many petals there are and how where the colours come into it, and then you decide what sort of flower you're going to do. So I'm going to start off here with some Ginkgo Green, which is a good mid-green. I use this quite a lot for any flowers that, any leaves and centres than that are quite a bright green, not too dark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush all over the centre with this. Make sure you get down in between the spikes. Just be careful you don't knock any off. This is why you need these dusting brushes, the professional ones, for the simple reason that they're soft enough to hold the dust but not firm enough to break anything if you're very careful with it. Right, so once I've done that all over, and then dust your leaves while you're doing it. I haven't got any to dust because I've already previously done my leaves, so we'll get rid of that out of the way. And the other colour that I'm going to use, this one from Edible Art, is called Black Currant, which is sort of reddy, sort of slight purpley tint to it. And I'm going to use this on the back of the petals, so I'm just going to get some powder on my kitchen roll. So on your kitchen roll, then off. You don't want loose dust on if you can avoid it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go sideways, so I'm just catching the edge of these spikes that are curved back. Just the ones that are curved back, not the ones at the top. Just like that. Okay, so we can pop that to one side. Now I've left a couple of petals somewhere that are dried. When I find which ones they are, let's try a soft one. That's not quite firm enough yet, but I'm going to use this anyway. The advantage is if you're doing them while they're still quite soft like this, if you need to shape anything again, you can do. So start with your colour up the back, like that, up the middle, and then bring it out to the side. I don't want it to go right to the top. And then you can brush downwards to get a deeper colour at the bottom. So you fade it out towards the top and then a bit darker towards the bottom. So I'll just pop that in there, and then I've got a wide one here. Again, up the centre. So it's on your brush, off your brush. You don't, if you get loose dust flying on there, if you want to enter competitions, they pick up on every little speck. They go over it with a microscope. I know I've mentioned it before, but for anybody that hasn't watched my videos before, because this is still a little bit soft, I can reshape this if it goes out of shape. It comes in handy when you're putting flowers together because they fit better if you do this method, but you need to be fairly confident with what you're doing to be able to do it this way. But a lot of people, when they're doing live demonstrations, do it that way. I know Alan Dunn, when I've watched him demonstrating, he does that right from beginning to end without leaving things to dry, because you make all your components and then they've already dried to a certain extent before you start putting things together. Right, so that's the petals done. So we can move on to assembling the flower now. I know you haven't watched me make loads of petals, but I always try and make it a bit easier this way so that it makes the videos not quite as long. They can be quite long sometimes, depending on what you're doing. But if we make them too long, people are going to get bored and going to be yawning halfway through and probably not watch the end. So I'm just going to get my baby wipes out and give my hands a wipe before I go any further. It comes in handy when you're doing jobs like this, so you don't have to keep going off and washing your hands. So if you keep baby wipes, all my students were told to buy some baby wipes for this. It comes in handy getting the colour off your hands, and then you're not transferring it onto something else, especially when you're using strong colours. Right, so what I'm going to use to put... Oh, there is one thing that I've forgotten to show you. What I've done is I've done some of these sort of leaves just starting off. I don't know whether you can see that or not. And how I've done that is small piece of paste, ball of paste, roll it into a sausage, and then if you get a wire, I'm just going to use the 26 gauge wire here that I've used, because that's going to be covered anyway. Glue on it, pop that into your paste. You don't want to go too far up with this, then we'll just roll that back onto there. And then if you get your scissors, wherever I put them, there they are, hiding under there, get it so that they're pointing away, and then I'm just going to make a clip into there like that, and then clip that piece in half like that. Just curl these back. That's got slid down my wire. Just roll that back onto the wire. Don't want the wire showing. Can be a little bit messy because if you get glue coming out on the bottom there, it sticks to your fingers. Right, so if you curve these back like that, and then what I'm going to do is, if you've got the little cell pins, the smallest ones, if I can get my cell pin out, and then if you get in there with the end of the cell pin and just roll it out so it's thin like that, this is going to form little tiny leaves that are just starting to show right on the edge of the branches. Roll that over, roll it over again till you get your last one. Where are we? There. You don't need to do any veining or anything like that. We just want it to sort of be representative of leaves just starting to show. And then pop that to one side to dry and then dust them. I've already got some here that are already dusted that I made earlier on. So I'll just put those to one side, and I'm going to assemble the flowers now. So I need to sort out all my petals here. So they're the ones that are curved in. Five, there should be another one belonging to them somewhere. That's it. There we are. Another one there. That's that. So I've got 6 of those curved in. And then I want 6 of the outer petals. So to put it together, I'm going to use some brown tape. So I've got some brown stem tex here, because they grow directly on the woody stems. You don't really get green stems on these. They grow more like the leaves and flowers that you get on trees, like cherry trees and things like that. So I'm just going to take some of that out. Put that to one side up there. And get my trusty little cutter. I'm just going to move my camera up here so you can see what I'm doing here, because when I start putting things together I have a habit of going off screen. So if I move my camera now, I'm ready so you can see everything that I'm doing. I do get pulled up on it many a time, so if you're watching one of the videos where that's happened, there's some of my earlier videos. I apologise. So I've used it with one blade in it, so I'm cutting it into half. I'd use half with tape more than anything else, rather than the quarter width tape. We don't use quite as much. Right, so first thing you need to do, stretch your tape, find out which side is your stickiest side, and start that off on your wire. So pinch that in with your nails like that, roll between your finger and your thumb and push that up underneath the centre, and then we can put the petals in. So this is going to be the closed in one. I put these in threes. Like most flowers, you generally find that if you've got 6 petals on it, you get 3 petals that tend to be behind the others, unlike a rose where everything sort of overlaps. And don't forget to tighten up your petals, pull your wires down, make sure that they're nice and tightly in. Bend your wires back. Then you can adjust your petals once you've got those in. So I'm going to tape down a bit, and the reason for that is, for anybody that hasn't watched before, is that it's a lot better to make your other petals grip a little bit better if you've got some tape in there already down. So we'll take that off there and come back up to the top again when I can get hold of it. Right, so I want the other 3 petals to go in now, in between the first 3 that I've just put in. Don't forget, any questions you've got about anything I'm doing, leave it in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. There are some people on YouTube that don't bother with replies. Some of the ones that I've followed on YouTube, if I've had questions about things, I'm still waiting for some of the replies. The whole point of having it there is so we can reply. So I'm going to tape down again in between there. It's not that I'm criticising other people, I'm just saying that if you ask me a question, if I don't get back, it's because I'm unable to get back straight away, but I will get back as soon as I can. Right, so we've got those in now. So now we can start with the wider ones. So I'm going to start off by going between the 2 that I've just put in at the back. Once you've got them in, you can adjust them. This is where if your paste is a little bit soft, you can reshape your petals while you're putting them in if they're not totally dry. It's going to go in there. Tape down in between again. If you keep getting into the habit of taping down in between, you'll find that things tend not to move around as much. And then go in between with your next layer of petals, your final 3. Pull your wires down to make sure everything's nice and tight. There we are. And tape down. There isn't much of a calyx on the back, so I don't bother to put a calyx on Magnolia. There is a little bit green if you want to put it in, you know, but you want something really fine, not like a normal calyx. But that is optional. When we're doing flowers on cakes, sometimes, you know, you've got to think about the cost of it as well. And the more detail you put into something, the more cost there is involved in it, because it's your time, because you need to be charging an hourly rate. We have somebody here in my area that does wedding cakes and charges ridiculously low prices. How she makes any money out of it, I've no idea at all. But it's something that we can't do anything about. It's her problem, isn't it? Oops, tape stuck to me. So you can bring your petals up a bit now, you can reshape them. So that's a closed in one as opposed to the open one. So I'm just going to get all my petals out for the open one. That's a wide petal. Narrow. Just make sure I've got enough here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only got 5 there for some reason. I'll just have to colour another petal. One that I've missed that were nearly dry. Just bear with me a second. I'll just go over colouring that. Just need a bit more colour. I've done my blue peat a bit, and for some reason I picked up the wrong one. I thought I'd done enough and I hadn't. When it comes to steaming your petals, I usually find that it's better to leave it until you've got all your flowers together and assembled before you steam, rather than steaming each individual flower if you've a lot to do. Just make sure I've got enough there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, this one there as well. Just saves a lot of bother. If you wait until you've got everything together, then you've only got to steam once rather than keep doing loads of pieces. Anything to save time is a good thing, because time is money. If you're charging for it, then you have to think about little things like that. Right, so we'll start off with this bit of tape that I've got left here to get that put together. So I want a centre there, which I've already coloured. Start your tape off round underneath there. Push that up. Underneath the petals, and start with the narrow petals. Because these are curved back, it's going to be naturally more of an open flower. I haven't done any buds with this because it's just basically a pointed bud really. If you wanted to do some buds in, you can. If you see anybody that's got magnolia growing in the garden, or even online, if you research pictures, there's plenty of sites online with professional photographers that take lovely close-ups of flowers. So if you can't get to the real thing, it is the next best thing to get the detail that you want for whichever flower it is that you're doing. I mean, when I was teaching in college, we were quite lucky. We had one of these big screens in the classroom, and we could get on the internet, and I could get things up like that for the students. But like I say, I'd give them the websites to look at. To find whatever, because if you get onto a photographer's website, you'll find loads of photographers, probably hundreds of them, have photographed the different flowers, different varieties, all in different ways, so you can get a really good look at the actual flowers from a professional photographer to give you an idea of what it should look like if you can't get to the real thing. I'm just going to pull some of these wires down. If you do that before you tape down, and then you've got everything as tight as you can. If anybody can hear that, it's my cat playing pop, because I've closed him out of my little room here and he's complaining because he can't get in here. Very affectionate cat, but he does like a lot of attention. Doesn't like other animals, only likes human beings, because that's what he's used to. Right, so the final layer, I'm going to start on with, again, with the first lot of petals going in between the last lot that you've just put in. Yes, I'm coming in a bit. He's having a right go at me outside my room here. If anybody's got animals, they'll know what I mean. Cats tend to be quite picky about who they go to, unlike cats, unlike dogs. Mine's quite friendly with humans, as I say, just doesn't like other animals. Won't mix with other cats. He's always been brought up in an environment where they're all adults and no animals, so he belonged to a student before I got him, from student accommodation, so that's why he's like he is. Where's that missing from? There. Right. Just pull those wires down, make sure those are all nice and tight in. We don't get any petals waggling about. Tape right the way down. Right, so once you've got all your petals in, then you can adjust them. That wants to go in there, that wants to come round there. So that's the open flower. So then you've got the slightly open flower and the fully open flower. So the next thing to do is to get all my bits and pieces out, and then I can put this together into a spray. So I'll put the flowers up there. Just put that glue away before I knock it over. Get some leaves. As I say, I've already coloured the leaves. I'm just going to steam these. I'm not going to glaze them, for the simple reason that the leaves on Magnolia are not particularly shiny. So they'll just have a slight sheen, waxy sheen on them when these have been put together. Right, so I need some stronger wires now to put these on. So I'm going to use a 22 gauge wire, so it's a bit slightly thinner than the ones you would normally use on your roses. I might need 3 of them. Where my 22 is there? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut each wire into half. When you're putting a spray together and you're using what we call a guide wire to put your spray together, then you do need these longer. So I'm just going to cut these in half. Anybody watching, these are florist scissors, they're not normal scissors, otherwise I wouldn't be cutting wires with them. So I'm going to start off with some brown tape, and I've just knocked my scissors on the floor. Right at the tip of the wire, And I'm going to start off by putting in one of these buds. How many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. So I'm going to start one off there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that down for a minute, and I'm going to put another little twig in here. So I'm just going to cover one of these with some tape. And then what I can do then is I can put a little twig into the side there. And I can bend that out like that. And then I'm going to put a small leaf in. To the opposite side. And then I'm going to put the part open flower in. Oops, broken that off. Go down, and I'm going to put another small leaf in. Pull that down to make sure that's nice and tight in. You could make some buds to go in as well. If you just make little buds out of the tape, rolling it onto a thin wire, and put some of those in for, I'm putting a bigger leaf in there. These are all optional extras that you can add into your spray if you want to. It's a little bit difficult to roll it when I've got the leaves in the way. Once you get further down, it should be a little bit easier. There we are. The more wires you get in, the easier it makes it. So I'm just going to alter that leaf and bring that round the other side. So that's one little stem that I've got there. Just bend that out. So that's one. And then I'm going to start another one off. Wrong side. That's not the sticky side. And then we'll put another bud in there. That's just got 2 leaves on it. I started off with 2 on the first one that I've done, but it doesn't really matter. You can do as many as you want on them. Just pull that down so that that white wire is not showing. That's it. And I'm going to put a small leaf in there. I'm going to tape all the way down, and then it says put that. You can always bring it back up again. Take it down again, and I'm going to put a full flower in this time. So again, I'm going to bend it and leave a little bit of a stem on it, like that. If you want to, if you find it easier when it comes to putting the flowers in, because they can be quite heavy when you've got so many petals on them, you can use full width tape, because the stems are going to be quite thick anyway, so that's the reason we use half width tape, so it doesn't thicken your stems up too much. So I'm just going to tape down so that that doesn't move. That's it. Then I can come back up and I can put a leaf in underneath that. So I'll put another small one in. As long as you make sure that you put your small leaves in higher up and your bigger ones in lower down, it doesn't make any difference which way around you do it. It's your flower, you can do it whichever way you want. If you just sort of follow nature and have a look at anything in your garden and how it grows. Let's pull that in, make sure that's nice and tight, and tape down. I'm just going to come up and I'm going to put another bigger leaf in there, higher up. A larger one there. Just undo that, because I just need to pull that leaf down and make sure that that's nice and tight in. Just need to go back so I've got something that I can get hold of. There's the wire. Pull that in. That did have a short wire on it, that's why I've had to do that. Right, so that can come round that side, like that. So that's another one done. This is all going to be joined together when I've finished doing this. So I've got another wire there. Again, start off with a bud. Pull that down. Take that off, and I'm just going to put some brown tape on this one. If I go part way down, then if you've already got some tape going, then you can go onto your wire and tape it straight on like that. Now, since I've used all my half width tape up, I'm going to go on to some full width tape now to put the rest in, and then I can put it all together. Just pull that out like that. Never put your wires straight, always bend them around a bit so they're not entirely straight. Right, put a small leaf in there. Pull that down. Then I can put the other flower in that I've got. that's a little bit firmer, is that, with the full width tape. So if you find that you're having difficulty with the thinner tape, then just put some full width tape in for putting things together. Another small leaf in there. That wire in nice and tight and tape down. Just put a full one in. I've just got one left over, so that'll come together when I put all this into one spray. Pull that leaf down. Doesn't matter if they move around until you've finished doing your spray, because you can alter all that once you've got everything's taped together. Tear that off. Right, so that's another one done. So the next thing we can do now is I'm going to get another wire. I've got another piece there it is, hiding under that. And I'm going to start that off on the one that's part open. So again, with the full width tape, start that off up there, just underneath that leaf. And then I can put another stem in. We'll use that one because that's got a longer wire on it. I'm just going to bend that out a little bit so I don't break any petals off. Always make sure that you tape down in between when you're doing anything like this, because your sprays can get quite heavy, particularly when you're doing large flowers like this. So rather than taking any risks, tape down, make sure that that's nice and secure in before you add any more into it. So that's there. Just open my tape up again. In fact, I'm going to take that leaf out of there because I need a bit more stem on there, because that can go in afterwards. So I'm going to start my tape off on that one. There, so I can add that straight into this spray here, lower down here. You might need some foam or something like that to rest on when you start doing things like this, when it starts getting to this weight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape all the way down with that before I put any more leaves in. Make sure those wires are nice and secure. There we are, that's in. That leaf has got moved around a little bit, so we can adjust these sort of things once you get them in. So you can bend your other pieces out now. And that will be more secure when I've finished, because I'm going to go back in again with that full width tape, starting under there. Bring that round, dip that in, and keep your tape really tight while you're doing this. So then I can put another leaf in there. I'm just going to leave that flat up against the wire until I've got all this put together, because I don't want it banging on anything. Get your wire and pull that in to make sure that's nice and tight in. Then put the other white leaf in there. Take that round, bring that in really tight. I remember once I had to do a spray for a wedding cake. It was going to come from the top and trail all the way down the outside. It was 16 inches long. By gum, did I hold my breath for a long time when I did that. I had to do it upside down. But make sure you've got something soft underneath just in case anything goes. Fortunately I didn't drop it, but you never know what's going to happen. Something could go awry, so we'll just take that off. I can put some more tape on the bottom when I finish, so I'm just going to adjust these leaves now. And we can mess about with your flowers then to bring your stems out. Like that. So there we are. Let's move these out of the way. We have a spray of Magnolia all ready to go. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and you'll come back and see me soon in the whatever I do next. More suggestions are required. There are one or two things that I've got in mind, but if you've got anything that you would like to see me do, then please do get in touch. But check through my channel first, because there's a hell of a lot of flowers on there for you to look through. So if you go and have a look on there first, and then see what I've done before, and then if there is anything that you want me to see me do and it isn't on there, then come back and tell me. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, so take care and see you soon.